AITA for leaving when my girlfriend brought her new fiancé to our anniversary dinner? I'm 24 years old, and, until recently, I was in a relationship with Sophia, who is 22. We were together for a little over 2 years. Our story started in a pretty typical way. We met at a backyard barbecue hosted by some mutual friends. We hit it off that night, and kept in touch afterward, texting frequently. A few weeks later, we decided to make it official. In the beginning, everything was smooth sailing. Sophia has always been very open with her feelings. She loved to talk about emotions, about her plans for the future, and how she pictured her life in a few years. I, on the other hand, have always been more of a pragmatist. It is not that I do not think about the future. I just prefer to focus on building a solid foundation in the present instead of making grand, sweeping plans. During the first few months of our relationship, we did not have any major issues. We went out often, saw movies, grabbed coffee, or just walked through downtown, talking for hours. She was very affectionate with me and seemed to genuinely love our time together. I felt good about the relationship, too. The first time I noticed a real gap in our ways of thinking was about 8 months in. I remember that conversation vividly because it came out of nowhere. We were sitting on a bench in a city park after grabbing lunch from a food truck. We were not celebrating anything special, just chatting about our week, our jobs, and some ideas for a summer trip. Suddenly, Sophia said something I absolutely did not expect. "Do you think you would ever marry me?" She asked it casually, but her eyes were locked on mine, as if she needed a specific answer right then and there. I was quiet for a few seconds, not because the question was out of line, but because it felt way too soon to be talking about something that serious. We had been dating for less than a year. I tried to answer as honestly as I could. I told her that I did believe in marriage, but I felt we were still really young. I also explained that before I could even think about getting married, I wanted to have more financial stability, be more established in my career, have a decent emergency fund saved up, and maybe be in a position to think about a down payment on a place of our own. To me, this was just common sense. I was not saying no to marriage. I just believed there were important steps to take first. Sophia did not have a bad reaction immediately, but I saw her expression shift. She smiled, though it did not quite reach her eyes. "So, you don't want to get married?" she asked. I told her that was not it at all. I tried to explain that I could see a future with her, but that major life decisions needed to be made with a clear head. We dropped the subject for the rest of the night, but I had a feeling the conversation was not really over. Over time, that topic kept coming up in different ways. Sometimes she would make subtle comments when we were watching a movie where a couple got engaged. Other times, she would bring it up when we talked about friends who were moving in together or planning their weddings. The conversation almost always ended the same way. Sophia would say her dream was to get married young and that she did not understand why people waited so long to take the next step. In her view, when two people truly loved each other, they should not need a perfect set of external circumstances. I would calmly try to explain my perspective. I told her that while love was the most important thing, a lasting relationship also needed a practical foundation. For me, marriage was not just a ceremony or a romantic gesture. It involved significant legal, financial, and emotional responsibilities. It is a legal contract that merges finances, taxes, and things like health insurance. More than once, I used the same example. I told her it did not make sense to make a lifelong commitment if we were not even sure where we would be living or how we could support a household. Sophia would usually fall silent for a moment after hearing that. Then she would respond with a phrase that eventually became a recurring theme in our relationship. "The issue is, you just do not want to get married." Every time she said that, I tried to clarify the distinction. It was not that I did not want to, but that I did not think it was the right time yet. But as the months went by, I started to realize she was interpreting my pragmatism as a lack of commitment. We had several arguments about it. They were not big, screaming fights, but rather long, repetitive conversations where we both stated our cases, and neither of us ever budged. Despite that, our relationship continued on a relatively normal path. We kept going on dates, celebrating holidays, and spending quality time together. From the outside, anyone would have thought we were a solid, stable couple. And for a long time, I believed that our differences were just a normal part of any relationship. I figured we would eventually find a compromise. As our 2-year anniversary approached, I decided to plan something special. Not to prove a point, but because 2 years felt like a significant milestone. The week before, I organized a dinner at a restaurant Sophia had been hinting about for months. It was not an incredibly high-end place, but it was much nicer than our usual spots. I made the reservation days in advance to ensure everything was set. I also took a personal day from work so I could get everything ready without rushing. I remember waking up early that day. I spent the morning running errands and then went to a jewelry store to buy her a small gift. I intentionally did not choose a ring or anything that could be misinterpreted. Instead, I picked out a simple, elegant necklace I thought she would love. In the afternoon, I got dressed up a little more than I normally would. I am not usually one to fuss over clothes, but I wanted the evening to feel special. I got to the restaurant about 20 minutes before our reservation time. The place had dim lighting and soft jazz playing in the background. Several tables were already occupied by couples and small groups. The atmosphere was perfect. The host led me to the table I had reserved, a nice one by the window. I sat down and checked my phone. Sophia had not arrived yet, but that was not unusual. She had a tendency to run a few minutes late. While I waited, I ordered a glass of water. The first 10 minutes passed without any issue. I used the time to look over the menu and think about what we might order when she got there. After about 15 minutes, I sent her a quick text to ask if she was on her way. She did not reply immediately. I figured she was probably driving or putting on the finishing touches before heading out. Meanwhile, the restaurant started to fill up a bit more. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, delivering plates and drinks. Several couples were chatting quietly or raising their glasses in a toast. I checked my phone again. Almost 30 minutes had passed since our agreed-upon time. At that point, I started to worry that something might have happened, like she was stuck in traffic or had a last-minute delay. I sent another short text. Still no response. As I waited, I gazed out the window at the street. From my table, I could see the entrance to the restaurant and a small stretch of the sidewalk. A few more minutes ticked by. Then, I saw something that I did not quite process at first. In the distance, I saw Sophia walking toward the restaurant. I recognized her by her distinctive walk and the dress she was wearing, one she had worn for another special occasion. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I thought she had finally made it, but as I looked closer, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. Sophia was not alone. I kept my eyes fixed on the entrance as they got closer. My initial thought was that maybe a coworker had given her a ride, as she sometimes carpooled. However, as they neared the door, something about the scene felt wrong. They were not walking like two people who just happened to be together. He was walking a little too close to her, with this overconfident swagger and an expression that seemed to relish the situation before it even began. When they stepped into the restaurant, several heads turned. The place was fairly quiet, and their entrance made a small stir. Sophia spotted me immediately. She did not look nervous or apologetic. On the contrary, she wore a look of firm resolve, as if she had come prepared for a confrontation. She walked directly toward my table with the man following close behind. I was still seated, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Sophia," I said, "I thought you were coming by yourself." She did not answer right away. First, she glanced around, almost as if to confirm that the nearby tables were within earshot. Then she said something that instantly filled the air with tension. "This is what a real man looks like, Mason." For a few seconds, I was completely stunned. The statement was so abrupt and hostile that my brain needed a moment to catch up. I looked at Sophia, then at the man standing beside her, hoping for some sign that this was a terrible, misguided joke. Neither of them was smiling. The man had a slight, arrogant smirk on his face, as if he knew exactly how this was going to unfold. "What?" I finally managed to say. "What are you talking about?" Sophia crossed her arms. "I am talking about the fact that I am done, Mason. I am done with your insecurities." She continued, her voice rising slightly. "Done with your endless excuses. Done with you being too scared to take a real step forward." By now, I noticed that some of the people at the surrounding tables were starting to watch us. "I do not understand," I said. "What is all this? Who is he?" Sophia gestured toward the man with a nod. "His name is Blake. He is a senior manager at my company." The name sounded vaguely familiar from when Sophia talked about work, but she had never gone into detail. Blake stepped forward, puffing out his chest slightly. "Pleasure to meet you," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Though I am sure you already have an idea of who I am." I did not respond to him. I turned my gaze back to Sophia. What is going on? She let out a short, humorless laugh. It was the sound of someone who had already made up her mind. What is going on, she said, is that Blake is actually a man who is not afraid of commitment. That sentence landed like another punch to the gut. And what is that supposed to mean? I asked. Sophia looked at me with a mixture of frustration and disdain. It means he does not make a woman wait for 2 years with a bunch of excuses about needing to be stable before he will formalize a relationship. In that moment, I started to see where this was headed, but it still felt surreal. Sophia, I said, keeping my voice level, it is our anniversary. Why are you doing this here? She answered without a second of hesitation. Because I am tired of waiting. Then she delivered the final blow that made everything horribly clear. Blake and I have been seeing each other. The words hung in the air. The low murmur of the restaurant seemed to fade away. Some people were now openly staring at our table. I felt a strange combination of shock and utter exhaustion. It was not the dramatic, emotional reaction she was probably hoping for. Instead, I felt like I was watching a bizarre play. Sophia was not finished. With him, I do not have to beg for our relationship to move forward. He actually knows what he wants. She paused for effect. He actually wants to get married. Blake chimed in then, a condescending smile playing on his lips. The truth is, Mason, you are barely a man. A woman like Sophia deserves someone who knows how to treat her, not some kid who is always hesitating. I looked at him for a moment. He was not interested in a conversation. He was performing. Sophia spoke again. He already promised me that we are getting married. That confirmed it. This was all a planned, public spectacle. So this is why you came? I asked. We came to tell you the truth, she shot back. Then she added, I thought you might at least try to fight for me. I did not reply immediately. Blake spoke again. Of course he won't, he said with a dismissive chuckle. Guys like him never fight. At that moment, Sophia raised her hand and struck me across the face. The sound was sharp, and it cut through the low hum of the restaurant. Several people stopped their conversations instantly. I felt the sting, but more than the physical sensation, I felt a profound sense of shock. I looked her straight in the eye. Are you finished? She seemed to be expecting a different reaction from me. Is that all you have to say? She asked, her voice filled with anger. I did not answer her. Not yet. I calmly pushed my chair back and stood up. Leave. The word came out steady and clear, without any shouting. What? I said leave, I repeated. Nobody wants someone so desperate. Except maybe another desperate person. Blake's smirk vanished, and Sophia's face flushed with rage. You are not going to fight for me. The question sounded utterly ridiculous after what had just happened. I looked at her for a few seconds before answering. No. Why would I? I do not fight for things that have no value. That response clearly angered Blake. You are a coward, he spat. You will not even stand up for your woman. I shook my head slightly. My woman does not show up to our anniversary dinner with her affair partner to create a public spectacle. Then I gestured toward the restaurant's exit. So please, do everyone a favor and take your drama somewhere else. For a few moments, no one moved. Sophia was breathing heavily, visibly furious that the scene had not gone the way she had envisioned. Finally, she snatched her purse from the empty chair. You are going to regret this, she seethed. I did not reply. Blake shot me one last look of contempt. Let's go, he said to her. The two of them turned and walked toward the exit. A dozen pairs of eyes followed them as they left. When the door swung shut behind them, the murmur of the restaurant slowly started to return. Still, I could feel people glancing my way. They were probably expecting me to storm out or have some kind of breakdown. But in that moment, I realized something very simple. I was hungry. I had been waiting for nearly an hour and still had not had dinner. I sat back down in my chair. The waiter approached my table, looking uncertain. Sir, is everything all right? He asked. Yes, I replied. I am just ready to order. I picked up the menu and chose a steak. The waiter nodded and walked away. I was aware that some people were still watching me from time to time, perhaps out of curiosity or pity, but I did not really care. I had just spent 2 years with someone who, apparently, had been building up to a moment like that for some time. And the only thing I truly wanted right then was to eat my dinner in peace. So I sat there, waiting for my food, as the restaurant gradually returned to normal. In the months following that incident, my life settled back into a strange kind of routine. At first, I expected the whole thing to create a lot more gossip. After all, It had happened in a crowded restaurant. In reality, though, most people just moved on with their lives. A few mutual acquaintances heard about what happened, mostly because Sophia herself had been talking about it. During the first couple of weeks, I got a few texts from friends asking if I was okay or trying to get the details. The questions did not bother me, but I had no desire to rehash the whole story. I usually just gave a brief response, saying the relationship was over and we had both gone our separate ways. And honestly, that is what I believed had happened. I fell back into my normal schedule, work, the gym a few days a week, and hanging out with my friends on the weekends. There was no ongoing drama or any attempt at contact from Sophia. For almost 2 months, I heard nothing from her at all. The entire ordeal began to feel distant, like a bad memory that was finally starting to fade. Until one day, a message from her popped up on my phone. It was a long one. When I saw her name on the screen, I hesitated for a moment before opening it. Part of me wanted to just ignore it, but eventually, curiosity got the better of me. The message started simply, "Mason, I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but there are some things I need to tell you." The rest of the text was an explanation of what had transpired after that night. According to Sophia, her new life with Blake had not worked out as planned. She wrote that after they left the restaurant, their relationship continued for a few weeks, but she soon began to discover things he had hidden from her. The biggest secret was that Blake was already married. And not only that, his wife and family lived in another state. Sophia claimed she found out when the wife contacted her directly, having discovered their messages. After that, according to Sophia, Blake completely ghosted her. He quit his job shortly after and, as far as she knew, moved back to be with his family. The rest of the message was a long, rambling apology. Sophia said she had made a terrible mistake, that she had been swept up in empty promises, and that she now understood the pain she had caused. She also said she was deeply ashamed of how she had treated me that night. I finished reading the text without feeling much of anything. It was not satisfaction or anger, just a kind of quiet indifference. I did not reply. Over the next few days, more messages came through. They all had a similar tone: apologies, excuses, and attempts to start a conversation. I ignored every single one. For me, that chapter was closed. I figured she would eventually get the hint and stop trying. But a few weeks later, something I never anticipated happened. One afternoon, as I was walking out of my office building, I saw her. Sophia was standing near the main entrance. At first, I thought she might be there to meet someone else, but our eyes met, and I knew instantly she was waiting for me. She approached me quickly. She looked much more nervous than she had in the restaurant. "Mason," she said. I stopped walking but did not say anything. "I need to talk to you," she continued. "You already said everything you needed to in your texts." She looked down at the sidewalk. "I know, but I wanted to tell you in person." I remained silent for a few seconds before responding. "Then say it." Sophia took a deep breath. "I am sorry. I am truly, deeply sorry. Everything that happened was a mistake." She paused. I believed things that were not true. I did not reply right away. Hearing those words after everything felt surreal. "I humiliated you," she went on. "And I understand now how wrong that was." I watched her for a moment. "Yes," I said calmly. "You did." She seemed to be waiting for more. "I just want you to know how much I regret it." "Okay." My response was short. Sophia frowned slightly. "That is it. What more were you expecting?" She hesitated before speaking again. "I was hoping that maybe we could try to fix things." I could not stop a small, dry laugh from escaping. It was not a laugh of mockery, but an automatic reaction to the sheer absurdity of the suggestion. "Fix what exactly?" "Our relationship." I slowly shook my head. "Sophia, our relationship ended the day you staged that scene in the restaurant." She looked increasingly desperate. "But I already apologized." "Yes," I said, in a text message. I paused for a moment before adding, "You know what is funny?" "What?" "You chose to humiliate me in public." Sophia did not answer. "So, I have an idea." She looked up, her eyes hopeful. "If you really want to apologize to me, you should do it the same way you hurt me." "How?" "In public." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, just as you made a fool of me in front of all those people, you should ask for my forgiveness in front of people." Sophia hesitated for a few seconds. "Okay, I can do that." Then I said something that, at the time, was meant to be a sarcastic, impossible demand. "Not just that. If you really want to prove you are sorry, you should get on your knees, right here on this sidewalk, and apologize to me. It was meant to be a bitter joke. I never expected her to actually do it. I assumed she would get angry, call me a jerk, and walk away for good. But to my complete astonishment, that is not what happened. She stood there silently for a few seconds. Then, slowly, she knelt down in front of me. A few people walking by on the busy sidewalk started to slow down and stare. Sophia lowered her head. "Mason, I am sorry." Her voice was trembling. "I know I hurt you. I know I humiliated you. And I know I do not deserve to be forgiven. But I am so sorry." For a moment, I was speechless. The scene I had invented as a joke had become a deeply uncomfortable reality. I did not feel any sense of victory or pride. All I felt was a strange, heavy sense of pity. "Get up," I finally said. Sophia looked up at me. "So, do you forgive me?" I shook my head. "No." She looked completely bewildered. "But I did what you said. I knelt down, just like you asked." "I know." I paused for a beat before explaining. "But what I said was a joke." Sophia stared at me as if she could not comprehend my words. "A joke?" "Yes." "So, you do not want to get back together with me?" "No." Her expression shifted instantly. The flicker of hope in her eyes died and was replaced by raw frustration. "But I did what you told me to do. I never seriously asked you to do that." I turned to walk away. Behind me, I heard her voice, strained and pleading. "Mason, wait." I kept walking. "Mason." When I glanced back one last time, I saw that Sophia was crying. Her face was a mixture of sadness and anger, but at that moment, I knew it was not my problem to solve anymore. Comment: when we face sudden heartbreak or betrayal, our first instinct is often to react with anger or seek revenge. However, true strength is found in the quiet decision to protect your peace. Walking away from disrespect without losing your temper is one of the highest forms of self-care. People will eventually have to face the consequences of their choices, and you do not have to stick around to watch it happen. Healing begins the moment you realize your worth is not defined by how someone else treats you. Remember that closing a painful chapter gives you the space you need to grow. Remaining kind and composed in the face of chaos proves that your character is unshakable. Please take a moment today to reflect on your boundaries and make sure you are only allowing healthy energy into your life. I appreciate you for being part of this community and exploring these meaningful lessons with me. Take care of your heart and always choose the path that brings you true inner peace. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.